So here is, I believe, a 1963 Fender Pro Reverb. I haven't dated the transformers yet, but I will. And I've finished the topside service, resurrection, if you will. So this is what I do on these beautiful, beautiful, classic vintage amplifiers. Not just on Fenders, Marshalls, anything that I get in here. I like to make sure that the amplifier is not only going to be safe, but that it's going to be durable. You know, these things were built beautifully, and they deserve to have, you know, obviously the best components and the most correct rebuilds and all the correct values and things like that. So I rebuild the bias section I replace the diode, I replace the electrolytic capacitor, I replace the drop-down resistor. I save all the parts for all the vintage fanatics, and those go in a little baggie and go with the amp back to the client. I verify and double check all the ground joints, of course, because you're supposed to. You want the amp to be awesome. I rebuild the tube sockets on purpose. I put in metal film resistors across for the grid stoppers, the control grids, and then the screen grid resistor I increase. I more than double it. This is on purpose. When these amps were built, they were getting like 117 volts out of the wall. Nowadays we're getting 120, 123, sometimes up to 130 volts. And increasing the screen resistor doesn't change the tone of the amp. If the only thing it really does is it protects the power tubes and reduces strain and stress on the power tubes, so your tubes last longer. These are wire wound, 1K 5 watts, so it's just overbuilt on purpose. Then going down on this amp in particular, another tech had been in it, and I think they used lead-free solder on a lot of joints. So I've gone through, I haven't cleaned off the excess flux from the original the original build. But I've gone through and I've removed all the old solder. This is on purpose. And I replaced it with new fresh leaded solder, reflowed all the joints across the entire circuit card. I've done the same thing across the rectifier and the power tube sockets. I haven't done the preamp sockets yet. I will be reflowing those later. And then I've gone down through the entire amplifier, like I said, verified capacitance on the discs and whatnot. There was one capacitor. This guy, these brown guys apparently, according to the gurus I know, were notorious for failing. This one did not pass mustard. It was way too far out of spec, so I replaced it with a schematic correct. You'll see the new Nichicon bypass capacitors all the way down the line, including in the tremolo section right here. And you'll see that I've replaced the plate resistors with my personal favorite metal, not metal film, but the Vichy. I call them the brown pills. I use these in all of my custom audio mutation builds. I have not done any more work to this amplifier. You see I removed the original 2-prong socket, and I've also removed the death cap circuit from the amplifier. That's going to stay in there along with all the wire, all the spaghetti, hahaha. But I'm going to put in a new 3-prong with an LED ground indicator, and we're going to rewire this for a 3-prong and safety. So that's kind of the first part of this. I also found some broken ground connections along the brass plate that I have repaired. You'll see one new shiny happy guy. There was another one down over there. And after that, I'm going to power up, bias the amplifier. After I do the power electrolytics on the bottom side, I'm going to power it up, verify voltages. I'm going to check for leakage across all the blue molded capacitors. These are apparently very, very good and never really fail or break down, apparently. So as long as the DC is super, super, super low on the other side of those, I'm going to leave everything alone, because this is a heritage amp. This is from a father to a son, and the son is going to give it to his son. So I want to make sure that this thing is absolutely perfect and awesome. It's going to be a great amp, and I'll verify, voltages and microphonics across these old caps. I'm curious about that guy, but I'm not going to just willy-nilly shotgun and replace, because I understand vintage lunacy and all that. I don't subscribe to it too much, but out of respect for the client, the history of this amp, all that cool stuff, I'm not gonna, I will go in and do no damage. How's that? Cause no harm. So, yeah, this is going to be a wonderful, wonderful example of a Pro Reverb resurrection. And it did come in with some issues. I found a whole bunch of poor joints, cracked joints, and things that, the client was complaining about. Oh, it makes some weird noises, and this doesn't work, that doesn't work. So I found some issues right out of the gate.